Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order and to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of Public Law 1975 entitled Open Public Meetings Act, Hardison Township Board of Education posted a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and location of this meeting at the office of the Hardison Township Board of Ed and on the district's website and mailed to the New Jersey Herald and to the office of the municipal clerk of Hardison Township. Could everyone please rise for the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mrs. Verso, roll call, please.
Mrs. Donna Carey.
Present.
Mr. Nick Devsack.
Here.
Mr. Brian Drellick.
Here.
Mr. Ron Hoffman.
Here.
Ms. Dana Kelza.
Here.
Mrs. Susan Lucarelli. Absent. Ms. Clarissa Milano.
Here.
Mr. Edward Riley.
Here.
Ms. Kelly Stowe. Here. We have quorum.
Okay, thank you. We are moving into the workshop portion of tonight's meeting, which will start with the public hearing for our proposed 2026 and 2027 budget. And I'd like to introduce our superintendent, Ms. Monica Rowland, and business administrator, Mrs. Sue Verso, who will provide that presentation to us.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. Mrs. Verso and I are going to tag team this a little bit, and I'll jump back and forth between the two of us. So just a beginning slide to talk a little bit about our district at a glance. We are, of course, 2 buildings, pre-K to 4 at the elementary school and 5 to 8 at the middle school. We have 617 students in those grade spans, but we also have 136 staff members broken out by certificated and non-certificated as shown. A little bit about the budget process. In the late fall, usually October, November-ish, administration begins to gather information from staff members about both school and district needs. And then usually just after the winter break, January, February timeline, administration refines that information as it relates to priorities and goals of the district. Then in late February, sometimes later than others, after the governor's budget address, state aid numbers are released. And then we are charged with adjusting the budget to match revenue available. In March, the budget timeline that the state sets out for us tells us that a preliminary budget has to be presented by the board and approved and then submitted to county office for review. Then in mid-April to early May, there's another window during which you can make any necessary adjustments to the preliminary budget, and a final budget has to be presented at a public hearing and approved. So that is tonight. And then the budget that is approved tonight will need to be sent again to the county office, and we will have it become live on July 1st. We use the lens of our priorities when we're building our budget, and I listed those here. We want to maintain high quality programs for students and make sure that we meet the needs of all of our learners. We want to support the growth and development of staff members. We want to maintain our facilities, and we also want to maintain fiscal responsibility. Every year there are challenges to building a budget. This year there's a few extra challenges. We have increased transportation costs because of higher fuel costs and higher costs associated with special education and out-of-district busing. We have growing student needs, including special education needs and other student support needs. We have rising facility costs and maintenance costs because of inflationary increases on supplies and materials, contractual salary increases, utility costs, which, by the way, increased 20% in 2025, and supplies all contribute to rising operational costs. And then a 21% increase in medical and prescription rates this year leads to higher healthcare costs. All those have to be absorbed in the budget we are creating. I'm going to turn this over now to Mrs. Verso to begin talking about revenues and expenditures. Thank you, Ms. Wood.
So let's start by reviewing our revenue for the 26-27 budget. The majority of the revenue comes from the local tax levy, which totals just over $12 million. It reflects the 2% tax increase from last year, and on top of that, we utilized bank cap funds that were expiring for this year, and which brought in about $191,000, and we included a healthcare adjustment for $334,443. State aid went up nearly 6% this year, but it brought the total to about $1.5 million, and we have about $1.6 million in preschool education aid. Other revenues that you'll see on the slide include grants, bank interest, fund balance, and debt service, and that adds up to about $1.7 million. So altogether, the revenue for this coming school year was $16.9 million, and that equaled the maximum of the 6.65% tax increase that was presented at the tentative budget. On the expenditure slide, most of our budget goes to regular education programming. This covers teacher salaries, classroom supplies, curriculum, and professional development. We also fund the special education, which includes the staff, materials, and training, plus tuition for any students that are placed in programs outside of the district. Support services are another piece, like counselors, nurses, specialists, their salary, supplies, and training. Administration costs include salaries for principals and secretaries, legal services, technology needs, auditing, anything that runs, the school from a day-to-day basis. We also have to pay for operations and maintenance, and this means salaries for custodians, cleaning, supplies, and liability insurance, utility bills. And transportation is always a big expense because it covers both regular transportation and special education busing.
And benefits.
I'm sorry.
And benefits.
Oh, I'm sorry, and the healthcare benefits, which include dental, prescription, and medical. Sorry, it was on my second page. Which that was a significant part of spending goes to health benefits. In the pie chart you can see on the budget that 21% goes to the regular education and programs and teachers. Special education, instruction, and staff make up 14% of our spending. Support services, again, the counselors, nurses, and specialists account for 13%. Administration, which includes the principal's office staff, is 8% of the budget. Operations and maintenance, which keep schools clean and safe, with the roof repairs or anything that custodial, any maintenance that has to be done, is 13%, along with transportation. And finally, the largest part, the 24%, is for the benefits that I mentioned earlier, dental, prescription, and medical. Okay, sorry. Before we even started building the preliminary budget, we made some cuts and reductions. We eliminated the elementary school head custodian position. We had stopped cell phone reimbursements for 10 staff members. Several summer programs were cut, including reading, band academy, summer academy, Wilson reading, and science writing for grades K through 2. We reduced the budgets for substitutes and home instruction. There was a STEM stipend in the budget that was also eliminated. We also lowered the technology supply budget, and even after making all these cuts, the budget was still up by 8.05%. So for further cuts to the budget, the initial budget based on district needs represented the 8.05. The maximum tax levy that we could raise to was the 6.65% because that was what we have for revenue. And so we had to make an additional approximately $240,000 in cuts to get back to the 6.65. So going back down from 8.05 to 6.65, more cuts had to be made. So we had to eliminate one teacher position. When hiring the new elementary school gym teacher, we had to budget at a lower step. We removed 2 paraprofessional positions that were budgeted for child study team support. We shifted $20,000 of the tech salary into the preschool education funding. We had to reduce summer custodial help, where we've always had 6 subs coming in. We only went down to 4. In the middle school, we have to hire a part-time custodian also at a lower step salary. We cut back on athletic bus transportation costs. We reduced the budget for unused sick pay for potential retirees. We had to eliminate a part-time nurse position. And altogether, these cuts saved $239,078 and helped us stay within the allowed tax levy increase of the 6.65%. And this became the basis for the preliminary budget approved on March 26th at the tentative budget. So after the preliminary budget was approved on March 26th, we faced new challenges that we hadn't planned for. Some students' needs changed, leading to unexpected special education costs. We had to budget for a new out-of-district placement, a registered behavior technician, and 2 additional paraprofessionals. And these changes meant that we had to add $224,307 back into the budget, which pushed us above the 6.65 tax levy increase that we were aiming for. Okay, so to offset the unexpected costs, to cover the new special education costs, we had to make more cuts and reductions elsewhere in the budget in order to add those back in. So we reduced regular education transportation costs. It doesn't affect the students because there are students in preschool who take the bus, so a portion of that transportation can be moved into the preschool expansion aid for covering that portion of the busing for those students, for the preschool students. We eliminated another teacher position. We cut back on office software expenses and gas and electric in the budget because we can move that into the preschool funding since we have the annex and it houses the preschool kids, most of them, so we can put that money back in there. We changed 1 full-time secretary position to part-time. We lowered the budget for nurse supplies. We had to eliminate a 2nd part-time nurse position. And altogether, the changes saved us about $224,753, which was just enough to cover the $224,370 that we needed for the new special education expenses. So further reductions, we were tasked with continuing to find ways to lower the budget below the 6.65. So we went ahead and we reduced the budget for technology supplies. We cut back on student clubs, going from 13 clubs to 10, but there's currently only 6 clubs running this year. Our Spanish program was changed to a more cost-effective one. We trimmed additional supply lines throughout the budget, and these changes helped us make further reductions and manage costs more responsibly.
And those cuts did cut the tax levy to increase to 5.97.
To 5, yes. Okay, so the summary of cuts overall, 2 teachers and staff. It was 2 teachers, 2 part-time nurses, head custodian, a full-time secretary to part-time, 2 summer custodians, and a STEM stipend. For supplies, we made cuts to the technology line, maintenance lines, and other supply lines in the general supply. And we reallocated some of the expenses, like transportation, utilities, to the preschool funds as much as we were permitted to do so. Okay, so this chart is the monthly tax impact. If you look at it, if we lower the tax increase from 6.65 to 6%, so we're just under the 6%, the total levy amount went from $12,450,000 to $12,413,000. So for the average homeowner, with a $411,000 average home price. The difference means that the annual tax increase would go from $135.91 a month down to $127.98. That's a savings of $7.93 a year, or 66 cents a month. Your monthly tax increase would be $10.67 at the 6%, $10.67 at 6% level versus the $11.33 from the 6.65. And you can look at the lower tax increase for the levy to see what the differences would be from 6.65 down to 4%. And this chart represents the tax levies over 10 years along with state aid that we received in the same amount of time for the same years. If you look at the chart, you can see that the tax levy has increased every year, obviously by 2%. Most years the increase was steady, typically around the 2% in state. Your monthly tax, I'm right here. For example, in 2016-17, the tax levy was $9.4 million, rising to $11.3 million by 25-26. And these increases made it necessary to keep up with the rising costs and to make up for this lost state aid, which you will see on the other side. The state aid was about $2.2 million in 2016-17, and starting in 17-18, you can see a steady decline. The drop was because of S2 funding, which was a state law that changed how aid was distributed. S2 money shifted money away from the districts like ours, considered overfunded, and they redirected it to underfunded districts elsewhere. So our state aid dropped every year for 7 years and falling to just over $1.2 million by 23-24, and it was a loss of nearly $1 million for the from 2016 to 2017. And you can see in 21-22 and 22-23, it was just under 15% of funding that was lost in state aid. In the last 2 years, we've started seeing increases again, but we're not close to receiving any support that we did 10 years ago. And the ongoing gap between the state aid and our needs is why the local tax levy has played a bigger role in balancing the budget. And I believe this history is important context for understanding why the tax levy increases have been necessary and why maintaining the balanced budget is such a challenge, even with careful planning and cost cutting.
And finally, just want to share some thoughts about moving forward. I want to make it clear that not taking the full health care adjustment, in other words, not going to the 6.65%, will automatically reduce the amount available when we begin, or they begin, the 27-28 budget process. Also, according to insurance brokers who are visiting with different VA groups around the state over the last couple of months, they expect even higher healthcare cost increases for next year. They've been talking about 30% or so is the expectation at this point. And of course, there is continued uncertainty over inflationary costs and energy costs going forward, and we're not sure when that will begin to abate. But to end on a positive note, there is a possibility of maybe some relief if the pending Highlands legislation does succeed. That's the one that we passed the resolution about at our April 28th meeting, because that legislation seeks to restore funding to districts that have been negatively impacted by the Highlands Act over the last several years. So to board members, do you have any questions at this point?
I just want to thank Sue, Monica, my colleagues up here on the board. I wish I could quantify to those in public tonight how many hours, weekends, evenings, vacations Sue and Monica spent towards developing this budget, patiently answering our questions, the number of extensive committee meetings we all participated in, and asked questions and provided further feedback, not just over the past week or two, but several months of work that went into this, and the precision and clarity and very clear explanation that you both provided tonight. So thank you both very much. I'd now like to move on to public comment. Just want to reinforce a couple norms about public comments tonight. Please, if you're coming up to speak, maintain a maximum of 3 minutes per subject, and when you come up to the microphone, we respectfully ask that you share your name and address. Any public comments on the budget?
Tony Alfano, Artiston. Good to see you all again. As a former Board of Ed Finance Chair, I can appreciate all the work, Sue, that you've done, Monica and the board, and Ed, being on the chair of the Finance Committee. It's arduous. And I know the electrical and energy cost and insurance cost were handed to you. And Brian, you had a very difficult budget coming up, and you have negotiations, and you have to select a new CSA. I believe starts next month. I believe that's the case. So thank you all for doing that. As a taxpayer, I was hoping for maybe a 4.5% to 5% increase. So as a taxpayer, I'm a little disappointed. But as counsel and liaison for the Board of Ed, I do have an ask. So Brian, maybe you can, and in the summer, maybe you can get a coalition of other presidents of BOEs, and along with some of the teachers union reps, and maybe go down to Trenton and tell the elected officials on both sides of the aisle that they have to fix the energy problem and the insurance problems, because I think Monica said 30% next year. It's going to be, what are you going to do next year, right? So right now, this increase, a lot of it is out of your hands, but if you don't make an effort to threaten the politicians that they're going to be removed and other politicians will be elected in their place, maybe they'll regulate the insurance companies a little bit better, make it more affordable for the taxpayers to give the teachers their and other public workers their entitled benefits. And then maybe they can have better energy policy within the state that'll lower costs. That's ask number one. Ask number two is that for the board at large, continue to have policies that encourage better attendance rates. Absenteeism should be on the way down. I don't know if it's still 11.5%, so you had those numbers. It may be less now, but if it's coming down, continue those policies and those outreach. Also, I encourage you to continue to stress student achievement, better test scores, and the other ask is to make sure that your HIV policies are strong enough where we don't have these people complaining on social media or coming up to the microphone and bringing out any of these HIV incidences that should have been solved. So finally, as council, in January, I said to all of you, we're here to help. So if you need any help, we're here to support you and help any way we can to achieve any of those goals. So we're here to help. I'm not here to beat you up today. I know how hard it was for you to do it. Just I have to pay the taxes, so that's why I'm a little disappointed. Other than that, have a great year and a very successful budget coming up. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Good evening. My name is Lauren Donahue. I live, where do I live now? Lake Tamarack, 20 Lakeshore Road North in Stockholm. I just wanted to thank you as well. My children are grown. They're out of the Hardiston School District, but I'm an alumna, my children are, and I know that the school is the backbone of the community. It is the fabric of who we are. And it's heartbreaking to see the funding cuts that we're all facing. And I also work in a school district where the Highlands Act has really decimated our funding. And I can tell you, as someone who, I just went to Trenton actually, so Tony's suggestion I think is fantastic, that we all have to come together, especially up in Sussex County. We all have to go and put pressure on the legislators that can change the funding formula. But in the meantime, I'm happy to increase my taxes by, and Sue, I forget the number you said, $13? I'd pay a lot more than $13 if it means keeping our programming and the exceptional education that our students have been getting. And something like HIB, all of these bullying procedures that we have to follow in districts, those are not funded mandates. They're completely up to the staff in the school to manage within the budget that we have. We don't get any additional funding to do that. And I can tell you as someone who does that in my district, those investigations and the time that it takes and the staff, just the hours and the workload of that is exceptional. So if that's something that we really want to keep at the forefront is like the culture of the school, you have to keep those support staff members in place. Reducing staff is definitely going to hit you hardest in those areas. So I appreciate everything you guys are doing, and I think as a community, we all have to rally, and hopefully we can make some changes down in Trenton. But in the meantime, thanks for doing all the work to keep this place great. That's it.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments? Okay, seeing none. So we will move forward with the resolution for adoption of the 26-27 school budget. I'm going to read a little bit of this and then ask for a second and have questions or discussion from the board. Adoption of the final budget with modifications to the tentative budget approved by the Executive County Superintendent, whereas the Hardison Township Board of Education adopted a tentative budget on March 24th, 2026 and submitted it to the Executive County Superintendent of Schools for approval. And whereas the tentative budget was approved by the Executive County Superintendent of Schools on April 17th, and whereas the tentative budget was advertised in the legal notices section on the Hardison Township School District website, which you see there, on April 27th, 2026, and whereas the final budget was presented to the public here tonight at the middle school with our address, the Hardison Township, the Board of Education has now determined to make modifications to the tentative budget as follows. You see that outlined in the table on page 3. And moving on to the rest of the table, carrying over to page 4. This budget incorporates the following revenue measures. The general tax levy will be 5.97%, and the taxes to be raised for the 2026-2027 school budget. General fund, $11,971,356, and debt service, $481,194. Can I get a second, please? Thank you, Nick. Board members, questions, discussion?
I just want to thank my fellow board members and definitely Ms. Verso and Ms. Rowland for stepping in and leading us through this daunting and challenging process. Been on the board for 12 years, and unfortunately this is a situation, I appreciate all the cuts that have happened in state aid and how the funding has been transferred onto us, the taxpayers in the local community. And unfortunately, this will be the first time I have to support a budget that unfortunately cuts programs, cuts teachers, but I still feel we're doing justice to the students by raising the taxes, and I am okay with paying my fair share. I don't want the burden on you as the community for it. However, we are in a daunting, challenging place, and I do want to thank you. There's been lots of intense conversations behind closed doors of the community, of the board, and you know, Monica and Sue, I thank you for leading us through it, because it was a challenging couple months. But I think we come out stronger, and I think we come out down the road on top. And I just wanted to say that. So thank you to my fellow board members for keeping an open eye and keeping professional in these conversations. That's all I wanted to say.
Any other questions, discussion, feedback? What strikes me in looking at the presentation that was put together tonight, Nick mentioned this, Tony mentioned this, you look at the one table where this district has had such tremendous financial responsibility for so many years, and you look at that a couple columns to the right, on a couple slides back there, about the state aid that took place during that very same period of time. It's really extraordinary that we have largely been immune from the staffing cuts and challenges that so many of our neighboring districts have faced throughout that period of time, whereas here, we have largely been immune to that. So there's never a good time for this. But the community should know that you're in very good hands. I am very proud of the investment of the group of people up here with me tonight. Hours of dedication, questions, discussion, some agreement, some not, but the investment of the people that serve the community and most importantly serve the kids. Nobody wants to be in the exact position that we're in tonight, but I'm grateful that we've arrived at this point and we can move forward knowing that we're in good hands and that next year we're going to start. It'll still be a challenging place, but not nearly as challenging as it could have been if tonight's decision was even worse. So again, thank you to everybody up here. And unless there are any other questions or feedback or comments, can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Carey? No. Mr. Demsack?
Yes.
Mr. Drellick?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Ms. Causa?
No.
Mrs. Lucarelli is absent. Ms. Murata?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Ms. Stoll?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on with a motion to adopt OB1 through OB3. Can I get a second, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Nick. Any questions or discussion there? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Carey? No to OB1 and OB2. Yes to OB3. Thank you. Mr. Demsack?
Yes.
Mr. Drellick?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Sorry. Ms. Causa?
No to OB1 and OB2, and yes to OB3.
Ms. Lucarelli is absent. Ms. Murata?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Ms. Stoll?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will not have executive session, so we don't have to return to public session. Okay. No further action or discussion required by the Hardison Township Board of Education. I present a motion at 8:05 to adjourn the meeting. Can I get a second, please? Thank you, Ron. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.